Nabila Ramdani, a journalist who specialises in Arab affairs, is a guest of mine this afternoon as well. Welcome to the show, Nabila.
Hello, good afternoon.
You heard what Nadine had to say, and I'm sure you wouldn't deny any of the progress that has been made. But would you feel that actually more harm has been done than good?
Well, yes, absolutely, and actually I would contest some of the things that Nadine just pointed out. You know, to argue that largely Western powers have enhanced the level of education and medical treatment, and hence they've done a good job. We're talking about, one part of the country. What is undeniable is that Western presence in Afghanistan has considerably increased the level of violence. And the southern part of the country is in a permanent state of war. So I don't think that Western powers can boast about, tiny advances that they made on the ground, because the damage that has been done is far, far greater. And when you hear, in the wake of 16 civilians being killed, including 9 children and 3 women, when you hear very, very angry Taliban calling for revenge and retaliation against sick-minded American savages, well, that's precisely the kind of language and the kind of attitude that drove Western forces to get stuck into a war in Afghanistan in the first place. So I don't think we've made any progress there. And, a permanent state of war in order to stamp out terrorism in Afghanistan is in fact proving to be achieving the exact opposite. Western troops are very much being seen as a colonizing force, and this sentiment is breeding extremism more than anything else.
Okay, but Nabila's point is that the negative impact that Western forces have had on Afghanistan far outweighs any gains that have been made.
Ask any Afghan woman if they think that that's true, and they'll tell you that that's a really shocking thing for any woman to say.
Nabila?
How can that be true?
Okay, Nabila.
Ask the families of the women who have been killed yesterday, and they will tell you.
Nabila, however heinous this crime is, the fact is it's a small amount of women compared to the numbers Nadine is talking about who have managed to get themselves an education post-Taliban because of Western intervention in that region. And no one is trying to undermine the terrible crimes that this American soldier committed. But
Nihal, I think, you have to put these facts into the bigger picture, into perspective.
Well, the bigger picture is that a million...
in a country which is in a permanent state of war. And let's not be under any illusion about the length of time we're talking about. The First World War lasted 4 years. The Second World War, the most destructive in human history, lasted 6 years. And yet, the West has been prosecuting George W. Bush's war on terror in Afghanistan for nearly 11 years. And, the incidents like the loss of 6 British soldiers, for example, are absolutely horrendous. And you've got revenge killings, more and more, being announced or being actually prosecuted.
Nabila, once you've started on a journey...
Can I ask what is her solution? Because what I'm hearing is that you're talking about this sort of fantasy, and I think it is a fantasy, that if the Western troops go out, Afghanistan will suddenly be peaceful, probably come back under Taliban control.
Can I just make a point about the achievement?
There are many people in the north of the country who are completely opposed to that Taliban ideology.
Okay, one second.
Wouldn't allow the country to slip back.
Nadine, wait 1 second. I'm struggling to try and get Nabila just to make a point. Right, Nabila.
I think, the aim of the Western forces, which is to try and deal with terrorist groups in Afghanistan, has been, achieved very early on. They did manage to get Afghanistan rid of, nasty Al-Qaeda type of terrorists since 2001, in fact. But what they have achieved is they have displaced those terrorist groups into countries like Pakistan, Yemen, and indeed Somalia. And the idea behind it all is that terrorists do not operate in war zones. They are not regular soldiers. They operate outside military zones. You cannot defeat terrorism in a conventional war, and that's what we are effectively trying to do. We are using a conventional war to fight a terrorist war, and history has shown us how difficult, if not impossible, this is.
But Nabila, sorry. No. Wait a minute. No, I think you're repeating the same point. Nadine wanted to ask you a valuable point, which is then, what is your solution? Now that you have gone down this road, and by you I of course mean the West, by the time this plays out, what is the solution? Because if you pull out now, you and I both know that Karzai and his administration and the Afghan military are not strong enough to keep that country intact as it stands at this moment in time. So what is the solution?
I think part of the solution is for Western powers to acknowledge the fact that you cannot pacify Afghanistan by a foreign military force being present in Afghanistan on a permanent basis.
Okay, that's okay.
And the reason why we have so many armed military forces there is because they are dealing with a fearsome enemy. The Taliban obviously enjoy huge support. They showed military prowess. They're obviously getting their weapons from somewhere, and to discard them as a bunch of fanatics is completely absurd. The reality is that they are a formidable enemy, and they need to be fought in a different way, not by prosecuting a permanent war on a country. And
they're trying to do that, are they not?
Killing innocent people along the way, including dutiful soldiers who shouldn't be dying.
But you see, Nabila, by agreeing, as was reported, to move some Taliban leaders from Guantanamo to Qatar, they are attempting to begin a dialogue with the Taliban, so they understand that as well as you do, that you cannot defeat them militarily and you have to at some point start talking to them. But you still have not really answered the question practically, what is the solution then? Because that's what Nadine wants to know, as someone who travels back and forth to Afghanistan, if the Americans are to pull out with the British and the NATO forces, and if they were to do that in the next 6 months, could Karzai and the Afghan military keep that country together? Or would it be overrun by the Taliban again and we're back to 2001?
Well, practically, I would contend that, acts like by American soldiers, like the burning of the Quran, or indeed urinating.
This is still not a solution, though, is it? You're contextualising an answer, but you're not providing an answer to the question that Nadine wants to know.
There are solutions to tackling terrorism. And the solution is not to prosecute a war. If Western powers were genuine about dealing with radicalization and the causes of extremism, they would pour much more money into civil society to try to educate people.
Well, they're doing that, are they not? But that's Nadine's point. They're actually trying to do that.
It's one or the other, Nihal. It's one or the other. You cannot drop bombs at the same time as building up schools. You have to be consistent and coherent in your logic. Right. You cannot possibly bomb the hell out of a country, killing civilian populations along the way, and claim to, do the basics.
Okay, let me just stop you there for a second.